So glad you can join us today. We'll give everybody a few seconds to get settled. And while you're doing that, I'll introduce myself. I'm Dawn Lego, part of the marketing team here at Auction Packages. I'll be your host and moderator for today's conversation. For those of you who have joined us for past Auction Packages webinar, just so wonderful to see so many familiar names back with us. So thank you. And if this is your first time joining us, well, we're especially happy to build this community and have you here joining us. So welcome. Over the next hour, we are going to challenge the way many of you may think about run of show. I think most of us have like a schedule, a timeline. You assume we've got it covered with those two things. But a high performing run of show is really so much more than just knowing what happens next, right? It's about intentionally designing the flow of the program so that every step, every moment, we're engaging in a giving opportunity. So before we jump in, let's get everyone involved now that you're kind of settled here. In the chat, please introduce yourself now that you know me, and we're going to get to know our panelists in a minute, but please introduce yourself. Tell us your name, your organization, where you're joining from. Our panelists want to say hello to you, but I also want you to answer one quick question, please. Have you ever attended a fundraising event? And maybe you haven't because you're usually hosting them, but have you found yourself or have you seen anybody check their watch? Um, just type me in the chat. I'm interested to see how many me's we get in the chat. Me, oh, here we go. Me, I see them. Me. Yeah, I'm not surprised. I've done it myself. I'm ashamed to admit. Um, but I thought we would have quite a few me's. The truth is, we've all been there. Maybe the program started late. Maybe a speaker went too long, right? Because that never happens that a speaker goes too long, or there are awkward transitions, the energy of the room fades. So that's what today's conversation is about, right? Not necessarily adding more to your program, but designing more intentionally with the moments that you have already so that every moment has a purpose. All right, so let's officially get started. You've arrived at designing a run of show that performs, how to maximize your engagement, momentum, and revenue. So we have a great panel. They're going to introduce themselves in just a moment. We couldn't have a better panel to have today's conversation. But before we jump in, just a few housekeeping notes because we want you to get the most of your experience today. So firstly, a big shout out and thanks to my colleague, Sarah O'Brien. She manages our webinar programming and our content and all the behind the scenes logistics. So that makes this all possible for us. So thank you, Sarah. If you'd like, closed captioning is available during today's webinar. You'll also receive who's the marketers in the house? What's the number one webinar question? Are you recording? We are, yes. You'll receive the full recording. We'll send you a follow-up email for all registered attendees. So don't worry about taking detailed notes. We really want you to be interactive today. Every webinar is available on Auction Packages and on our website and on our YouTube channel. So it makes it easy to revisit all the key takeaways. Just a quick reminder, today's session is eligible for 1 CFRE credit. To receive the credit, you need to stay for the full duration. That's a requirement. And please don't be shy. In the chat, in the Q&A, there is a Q&A feature in addition to the chat that's right below you. Our panelists want to jump in, answer your questions. We want this to be as two-way as possible in this Zoom virtual setting. So if you want to give commentary, use the chat. If you have a specific question you need answered, go ahead and put that in the Q&A and we'll try to answer as much as we can there. Last thing on housekeeping, we do have a webinar survey. You're going to see that at the end. We'll put a link to it. It'll also appear on your screen. Very important. It tells us how we did today, and we want to know. You can also offer up new content for future webinars. And if you need to have questions that didn't get answered, you can put them there, or you can connect with any of our panelists. So, and good news, anybody who participates in that survey, we put you into a random drawing. And that's the fun part after the webinar. We get to pull a name, call you tomorrow and say, you won an Amazon gift card. So that's the best part of Sarah and I's job. So please do participate. We hope you win and good luck. Okay, so here's what we'll cover today. Build, create, position, avoid, design, all the things to have an impactful run of show. So to do that, we have an outstanding panel. We want to go ahead and meet them. So Abby, let's start with you. We'll go in alphabetical order, and please introduce yourself and give us a little bit of your why and what you do and why this topic is important with you. Abby, over to
Oh,
you.
hi, everyone. I'm Abby Sloan. I am an event planner with Utopia Experience. We are a nonprofit event planning company who also specializes in AV production and video production for nonprofit clients. And why this is special to me is I think the nonprofit world is such a special, magical place. Nonprofits often don't get the flowers they deserve. Funding is very difficult. So being someone who can step in and help those events be as successful as possible is the dream for me. So I love it. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Like Disney, it's the magical place, right? Okay, Chris, over to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Marchand with Marchand Auctions. I'm a professional fundraising consultant and benefit auctioneer. On an annual basis, I'm raising 30 to $40 million, doing over 70 events. So huge passion, full-time job, and working with auction packages has been a blessing for over the last decade. So Don and the entire team and Sarah, thanks for having me today, and hopefully we can help raise the tide a little bit to give people that need an opportunity, need that information to help make their events that much more special.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, Jasmine, over to you.
Hi, I'm Jasmine Singh. I'm the Director of Community Engagement and Philanthropy at United Services for Children. It's a nonprofit in St. Charles, Missouri, and it's for pediatric therapy and early intervention. I have run a lot of events for a lot of nonprofits, and I'm very passionate about. I think run of show is a very interesting topic. It's super important. It's kind of like the core of events, so I'm very excited to be here.
We're so happy that you could join. It's always great for nonprofits to hear from their peers. So thank you so much. And last but not least, our beautiful, wonderful colleague, Siri. You know her. She probably doesn't need to introduce herself, but Siri, for those who might not know you, go ahead.
All right. My name is Siri Lippy. I am with Auction Packages. I'm a senior fundraising specialist here. Been here for about a year and a half, but prior to that, I worked at a event software company for over 22 years and managed on-site support. So I have gotten to see well over 1,000 events and seen how the run of show is so important to make sure that everyone is in their seats until very beginning till the very end. So yes, I'm happy to be here and share some of the thoughts that we have.
Thanks, Siri. All right, let's get right into it. We're gonna waste no time here. We're gonna channel our inner Julie Andrews and start at the very beginning with the basics. Jasmine, I want to turn to you first. Beyond a timeline, what makes the run of show successful? I mean, we all know the run of show is 6 o'clock, this is going to happen, 6:30, that's going to happen. But what makes a run of show successful when you hear the phrase run of show?
Sure. So for me, I think it's very much about coordination, not just the timeline of the run of show. So it should be telling us really more of not just what time something's happening, but who's owning each moment, who is introducing it, what the AVQ is. I like to do a lot of that work on the front end because the small details kind of become big problems on the day if you're not really into it. So, down to even who's escorting the family, who's checking that everyone has the correct information, and who's making the call if the video's not playing. So, the good run of show is really removing any possible guesswork. So everyone knows their role and how their piece connects to every other next one.
That's interesting because you didn't mention time in all of those things that you listed, right? And I think that's what it's all about. It really is beyond a timeline. Chris, anything to add in that? Like, what does a successful run of show look like?
Yeah, I mean, like, to echo what Jasmine said, it absolutely is the key. It's the engine of the whole show. From the time that people show up, they're registering, you've got your cocktail hour, you get them in the ballroom, right? You have some fun, you do your introductions, and then you get to the money-making part of it, which is really why everybody is there, right? And then oftentimes after that, if you have the time, if you have the ability in your budget to have party time afterwards, whether that's a DJ or a band, you go ahead and let people let their hair down and have some fun is a nice way to say thank you for all the wonderful donations they just gave you, right? It's not just a money grab and see you later. So if you can do that, it's really, really important. Even if it's only an hour with a DJ, it lets some of those people know that, you know what, you're more than just dollar cents to us. You're actually part of our organization, right? And that's, so I think that's very important as well.
Thank you. Well, let's look at the reverse of that then. And Jasmine, I want to throw it back over to you again. I think we learn by experience, right? You do your debrief and then it's like, oh, shouldn't have done that, could have done this, right? So, what is the biggest mistake that maybe you've experienced or that you see organizations make?
Sure, I think the biggest mistake, and it's kind of a running theme, unfortunately, is that people tend to add elements without really editing the program. So you tend to like a second welcome gets added or a thank you because I think that we're very close to our organization. Everyone that's in it is very tied to the mission, but we can start treating everything equally important and it doesn't tend to be. So the guest doesn't need to hear the mission explained 4 different times or listen to every possible stakeholder. So I think you really have to have discipline when you're deciding what belongs on stage or what can be communicated elsewhere.
Yeah, I love that. And I bet there's some people thinking like, oof, now can you help me tell my board or tell whomever,
Oh,
right? Like
that's a
that should
whole
be
nother
another
issue,
webinar.
Dawn.
Right? Yeah, totally. Another webinar. How do I get
Yes.
my stakeholders, in line with my run of show, right? Because
Yeah.
it's about the guest experience, not about the mission 4 times. So I'm going to throw this over to Siri because I know we're putting together a lot of content about designing the guest experience, right? Kevin Spikerman does a beautiful presentation, from before, during, and after, designing every moment. So, how do you intentionally build momentum from hello to bye bye? Siri, what's your comment on designing the guest?
It actually even starts before that. It
Ah,
starts when you open the door. You have to, make everyone feel that they're welcome and that they have a donor experience right from the very get-go, all the way until they leave for the evening. And so, or the afternoon, whenever your event is taking place. So you have to build on that and you have to incorporate ways that they feel connected all the way through. Otherwise, you're going to lose them.
yeah, Abby, anything else to add about designing that guest experience?
Yeah, for me, guest experience is making sure that you're tying those guests and all of those attendees to your mission. When they enter that building, they're kind of becoming a part of your team in a sense. They feel like family, they want to be involved, they want to be there. So I think making sure that you ride that energy kind of like a wave, you're not coming in hot and then killing their attention spans. You're really making sure that the entire run of show makes that momentum feel exciting and makes them feel like I'm a part of this team, I'm doing something important.
Yeah, I want to stay on this a little bit more. Chris, anything else on designing that guest experience from when the doors open?
Yeah, no, it's a what I love to do is based on whatever my live auction items are going to look like, I always have poster boards that are made in the actual cocktail time. So from the time they come in, they're going to grab a drink, they're going to get registered. We start talking live auction. We're talking about mission. There's videos playing around so that they're immersed in why they're there right from jump. And then the doors open. We welcome them inside with some music, and you're off and running, right? And if you do things the right way, less is more couldn't be more important in our business, right? The people that are speaking need to say something important. And just because you have a title under your name, I know it's difficult, but because you got a title under your name doesn't mean you need to be up on stage there, okay? Oftentimes you want to go ahead and release that title and just go ahead and say, this is why we're here. Let the chairs get up there and say thank you to their friends that they invited. That's important. CEO, why we're there for the mission, why are we all here tonight? And then let the professional take care of the money and then have a party afterwards. If you can really concentrate on that, success is coming your way.
Got it. So how do you know though, right? I mean, to Jasmine's point, you have a committee and I think everybody wants their stage moment, right? So you have this person wants to speak, that person wants to speak, the mayor, the celebrity, right? Just how do you know? And again, we'll have another webinar on how you manage it, right? But how do you know when a program element is like adding value versus just making the event longer? Because Chris is saying keep it simple, less is more. Jasmine's saying, right, you don't need your mission 4 times. So how do you know? Jasmine, can we start? Like, how do you identify when all these recommendations are coming at you?
I think it's very important to evaluate a program from a guest perspective. So, if you've done it before, what are they listening to? Are they looking to the stage? Are they responding? I also like to ask whether a segment is accomplishing something specific when you're going into it. So, do they learn something they need to know? Do we create a stronger connection in this way? Did it build trust or prepare them in a way to participate? Sometimes they're meaningful, but they don't land with the audience in the same way. But it doesn't mean that it's unimportant. It just has to either be shorter, differently, or somewhere else. So really, it's if the same outcome can be achieved more clearly and in less time.
Siri, anything to add on that?
Go ahead, Chris.
Well, I was just going to say that, listen, when I meet with my organizations, one of the first questions I ask is, like, if it's new to me, what are you looking to accomplish by bringing me in? Like, why are you looking for a change? And oftentimes organizations are running flat, meaning they've raised $100,000 for 3 years in a row. And so I ask them those questions and then I say, show me your run of show. And you see five people have been speaking before you raise money. And you see that you started cocktails at 6, you go into your ballroom at 7, and you don't start raising money until 9, and that's when you start to pull your hair out. So, it really does come down to saying, listen, if we pull this person out, pull that person out, this person can speak about this instead of that. No, they're still getting on stage, but let's tweak to what they're saying. Suddenly now you've condensed a little bit, get to the money making before, and the guest experience is that much better. Because look, at the end of the day, people have money. That's why they're coming to the event, right? They're coming to support the event. But if it's boring and if it's too long, now you're turning off people who may not want to come back again next year. So yeah,
You're eroding your trust for sure. Yeah. And then
yes.
people are looking at that watch again, right? We've all been there. But Siri, I'd love to get a little bit more about just identifying from you, like how do you tell? I do like what Jasmine said. How can we do it differently? Like maybe somebody's condensed speech on a card on the table instead of giving them stage time. So I do think we can get creative. But any other ideas, Siri?
Well, you can always do it with a video. So you can always pre-tape, and that way they don't keep on talking and talking. So that 2 minutes doesn't turn into 10 minutes. So it's shortened, and you control that with a video. But just like Chris said, you can't have back-to-back speakers because you will lose your audience. And you don't want to do that. So it's all about the flow. So as you are scripting out your run of show, it's good to put in the time management and then really clock it out to see where you're at. And exactly what Chris was saying, pull out where it's dragging on or move it to another section. Or like you said, maybe it's on a printed card that you can hand out. But yeah, you can only do so many speeches where you're going to start to lose your audience because they will disconnect.
Yeah, I have a very short attention span, so you're going to lose me. I agree with that 100%. Um, Abby, so I want to hear from you as well, just in the theme of, identifying what's not working. I'm sure you see a lot at Utopia Experience. What can you add to that?
For me, knowing what's working is what value does it add? Does it make someone laugh? Does it tie us towards the mission? Do they feel inspired? Does it encourage them to give in more money? I feel like just because you've always done something doesn't mean you have to do something. I
Mhm.
think, events are something that are unique. People get together. We don't get together as often as we used to. So take it as a sign to reinvent the wheel, try something new, really give guests what they want, give them an experience that makes them feel tied to the mission. Also, a fun side note, if you ever have a speaker that runs long, something that I've seen work really well in my experience is a speaker timer. We have a confidence monitor downstage and a speaker timer. We blink it red as soon as they go over time. It has saved my life more times than I can count.
Oh yeah. I love confidence monitors. That
Yeah.
needs to be on the AD list. Absolutely. Get that confidence monitor. Before we had that, I used to do the twirl with my finger, like wrap it up right in their face. So yeah, you need that blinking something. So I agree with that one. All right. I probably can just leave and turn it over to Chris Marchand at this point because the order of the program. This is so highly debated. What comes first, the chicken or the egg? And I just saw this so much on social media. What's the order of the program, Chris, to influence giving?
Well, for me, being in the auction business for over 30 years, everyone, and calling over 3,500 different events, auctions are absolutely psychological, and getting people's hands in the air as much as you possibly can creates excitement. Okay. You sell your live auction items, whether it's 4 packages or 10 packages, whatever you've got, you've created some momentum. Soon as the live auction is over, I call what I will then do what's next is the transition, the why we're really here moment. And that's a 5 or 6 minute moment. And it's a combination either of a video and or a speaker who's going to pull at the heartstrings to take everybody from a high of winning a trip to Tuscany or a dinner for 8 in your home to this is really why we're here. And we go ahead and fill those blanks in. Then we turn it from that. I'm right back on stage or my guys are on stage. And that's where we're going ahead and asking for the dollars and the cents. All right. Some people have asked me, Chris, do we do it the other way? I'm like, listen, no, you don't do it the other way. Have people had success the other way? Absolutely. There's more than one way to skin a cat. But what you'll have invariably is people will see that wonderful trip to Tuscany for 8 people and they're going to hang on to those dollars waiting for the live auction afterwards. Suddenly, when you get to the live auction, the trip sells for $15,000 and not five, which is what they had in their mind. And you never go back and ask for the money afterwards, right? So, look, I don't know everything, but I know that in my 70 events that I do annually, 69 of them do it that way. Okay. So almost everyone is doing it that way. And that really leads to success. I promise you, I would not steer you wrong.
Yeah, it's so highly debated. I'd love to get some other perspectives. I mean, what I do think is a common denominator is earlier in the evening,
Yes.
later. But Jasmine, for you, what sequencing works?
So, I agree with Chris on this. What I've kind of found is it's very nice for the flow to establish credibility, show impact, and then make the need specific. So once you hit, like Chris said, the live auction, people, they may not have spent what they thought, but they already envisioned themselves spending. So it's pretty nice to be like, oh, and you can. So I think that that's kind of the flow that I go with as well.
All right, let's get one more perspective. Abby?
Yeah, I agree with everyone. I think sequencing is everything. You wouldn't ask for a donation from someone 5 minutes after they walked in the door, but you also don't want to have them 10 p.m. just now asking for donations.
Yeah.
So I think building excitement gradually, really getting an emotional connection with the attendee, and then once they understand what they're supporting and why they're supporting it, letting them give those dollars that they came to give. You want it to feel natural and not transactional, but you want them to get what they came for, which is to give money to a great organization.
Yeah, that's why we're here, right? Yeah, we're all here to raise money. And I think everybody knows that walking in the door. So we talked about not just having the times, right? We talked about orchestrating, designing every moment and the sequencing, but you do have to transition from one thing to the other. You have to get them out of the happy hour and into the program, right? So transitioning is really important. I feel like you can lose people during that. So Siri, I'd love to get some from you. Let's talk about transitions. Why are they important? And how do you make your event a little bit more integrated and seamless?
Absolutely. So again, timing is everything and it's become shortened since I would say post COVID, right? So we used to do an hour and a half to 2 hour cocktail hour. It's now about an hour for people to arrive and then move on to the program. So I always tell people, depending on where your dinner or your program's going to be, if it's in a separate room, shut the bars down. That is one of the big key things to move people from one cocktail hour to the program. So you cut them off, and then that way they move into the next area. Maybe you have a band that comes in and plays and moves people from one room to the other. I've seen that as well, where a orchestra, or excuse me, a marching band has come in and basically everyone's attentive and follows them into the room to go get seated. So again, drawing attention to the next, keep the energy high, and then you start the program. So as long as you have set stages there to keep people moving, that's what you want to do to help transition from one section to the next.
Chris, I want to turn that question over to you as well. As an auctioneer, are you helping with those transitions from hello or to the end, or do you stop and start when you walk on and walk off the stage? Like, how can you help, or what have you seen organizations do to not lose anybody in all of those transitions?
Yeah, most of my events we're going to have a band or a DJ for a party afterwards. Okay. So while cocktail time is happening, I've got a microphone in the cocktail space. So
Yeah.
I'm speaking about raffles, I'm speaking about the live auction items, the silent auction that's going on. I'm doing that several times through that hour cocktail time. Then I'm going to go ahead and tell everybody, hey folks, we're opening the doors. The music starts to play on the inside. The bars in the cocktail time close and say, gang, bars are open on the inside. And before you know it, the crowd and the lines switch. Everybody's going on the inside, and there's a little bit of excitement. Oftentimes, up on the big screen, you've got a 5 minute clock going backwards to start of the program, right? So people will realize they get in because they're always saying hi to their friends, right? Oh, hi, there you are, because they didn't see you in cocktail time. So you're trying to put that up there. I'll make a couple quick announcements once you get inside. Folks, program will start in 3 minutes. Folks, program will start in 1 minute. Please take your seats, and then we're kind of off and running.
Wow. Okay, the countdown clock. Yeah. I don't
Countdown clock.
I don't know if I've seen that, but I love that idea. All right, so we talked about transitions now. We don't want to lose anybody in our transitions, but now we're on the stage. It's the mission moment. Jasmine, you said it already. You don't need four people talking about the mission four different times over and over and over again. So, how do you create your storytelling and those mission moments so that you're inspiring the generosity that you need, but you're not, a run-on sentence? Like, how do you orchestrate that?
Well, I think, the story should connect directly to what we're asking them to support. So if you're having a very particular ask, it should connect to that, but they should be understanding the need, the work of the organization, and the impact. So the format, I think, also really matters when you're thinking about that. Some people are really great live speakers. Some people are much better in a recorded interview that we can edit, a video, a conversation with the MC. So choosing the format once you've figured out who you want the storytellers to be, what you want to be showing, is just as important. So you're not forcing everyone into the same presentation style, but you still have this impactful moment that's, time sensitive.
Yeah, I love the format, not fitting everybody into your format, but deciding on different formats that may fit them. And I also like what you said. You can do a pre-recorded video that you can edit. I caught those few little words that you put in there that you can edit. So, okay, I love some of those tips. Chris, how do you weave that storytelling in? And just the right temperature or the right amount of storytelling because you really can overdo it.
Yeah, listen, this what I'm going to say next now, there's a lot of dollars and cents in this, friends. Um, I love my people. I love my people to say thank you during once we get everybody in and they're having their dinner. We're going to thank the people for the money that they gave last year, the year before. We're going to talk about where that money was supposed to have gone and how our leaders have spent it in a positive way, right?
Mhm.
That's a big thank you. So everyone's going to say, "Man, our leaders, we trust our leaders," right? Then we're going to go into the live auction. We get to that transition of this is why we're here. This is the mission moment, right? So thank you for everything you gave us in the past. This is what our plan is for the next 12 months. This is how we need you all to take us and achieve these goals and go beyond. All right. Very, very important. Now, as we're raising the money right now, boom, people realize that, hey, you know what, my $2,500, my 25,000, my 150, whatever you're giving, they can go toward this, and I'm actually impacting the event tonight in a very special way. I think it works. It works. It works. It works. I raised so much money during the paddle, during that fundraising portion, just a straight cash donation versus my competitors around. And then it's important because of that. Say thank you. Say thank you for the money that they gave you and go ahead and let them know why it's important going forward. Very important.
Gratitude. Yeah, I know. I'm with you 100%. So aligned. I underscore that. Um, we do have a question from Christopher. Thank you, Christopher, for your question. But we are talking a lot about, the typical sit down dinner, cocktail hour, sit down dinner, formal stage program. But he brings up a good point. If it's a cocktail party, the whole event is just a cocktail party. What do you change to get everybody's attention? To have those giving moments? How does that change the flavor of things? Whoever wants to answer that, jump in.
Sure, I think you're still building a run of, at least for me, I'm still building a run of show. If it's not a gala, if it's golf, if it's trivia, if it's a cocktail night, just so that you understand like how you want the flow to go. And you will have a mission moment at some point. I think that understanding how you're going to do that transition is pretty important when you're working at that. But that doesn't mean you're not going to have speakers. It doesn't mean you're not going to like pull attention. You can very much do that. You just really have to schedule it and very much think about the transition. Because if you're not having a sit down and you're having a cocktail, you really got to grab them.
Yeah, those transitions are harder. Anybody else have some thoughts on to help Chris out here?
Well,
Yeah, I
Just
100 oh, sorry, Siri, go ahead.
no, go ahead, Abby. Go ahead.
Yeah, I 100% agree with Jasmine. I think, regardless of the format of your event, making sure people feel connected to the mission is important. So maybe instead of having a big projector, you have smaller TVs playing the mission where people are by the bar. Or maybe one of the featured cocktails ties back to the mission and there's a QR code to scan on a napkin for them to tie you back to exactly what the story is. Maybe you have some of the beneficiaries at the cocktail hour interacting with people, kind of telling the story, regardless of gala versus golf versus, a charity hangout, trivia night, anything, I feel like as long as you are planning the run of show with things that tie back to the mission, you're getting successful in your event.
All right, so Patty wants us to sum this up. We're not ending the webinar yet, but I want to recognize Patty's answer. What she's hearing is there's three categories that we need to be focused on. Is this correct, panelists? Tie it to the mission, promote giving, entertain. Patty wants to know, does that sound right? Abby's nodding. Chris
Yeah.
is nodding.
I think so.
Good.
Keep it concise.
Yeah.
That's my only other one.
All right, Patty. So you're right. That's what you're hearing. Tie it to the mission, promote giving, entertain, keep it concise. Remember the video? We can edit it, right? So,
Yeah.
okay, hope that helps, Patty. Okay, so okay. We can talk about this all day and we can all be aligned and come out of this room and be like, okay, we got it, right? We just summed it up for Patty. But there's a lot of people involved in event, volunteers, execution, and team alignment. A great run of show is great on paper, but like dress rehearsals and getting your team aligned and Abby, I think you probably have some good things to answer here. How do you get that team alignment so that it goes as flawless as possible? It's never going to be perfect, guys, and perfectly imperfect is okay.
Mhm.
But how do we do that, Abby?
So for me, communication is the number one thing. People don't know what they don't know. I think when you spend time before the event walking through the run of show, letting everyone know where they fit in the plan. So making sure that Jasmine knows she's in charge of AV and Chris is in charge of auctioneers, making sure everyone knows what their role is day of is extremely helpful for not just you, but for everyone attending. That way people don't show up and they're not confused. They know exactly when communication will happen and what plan B looks like when something goes wrong. I think when everyone's working from the same playbook, the event feels effortless to guests, it feels effortless to the people working there, and it just ensures a smooth event.
Chris, how much do you prep? I mean, how do you dress rehearse? How much,
Yeah,
what does prep time look like?
yeah. Depending on the size of the event and the scope of the event, how much money we're looking to raise. Yes, sometimes there is a pre-game show, like say the day before. But oftentimes we'll have a meeting for sure the week of with the important key people, and we'll run through the whole show. Someone will be in charge of the volunteers. We'll have a volunteer meeting like 15, 20 minutes before the event starts, and get all the volunteers on the same page. But to echo Abby's point, if everyone communication is key, if everyone understands what their job is supposed to be, the guests have no idea when things go wrong. If things run long,
Yeah.
no one knows. Just keep it going. So if you have to cut somebody out, you go and say to them, "Listen, you're not talking." That's it. Because it's more important to raise the money than it is for what it is that you have to say, right? And that's that simple. That's the way you do it. So yeah, well said, Abby.
Keep your eye on the prize, right? It's
That's it.
about the imperfections is about are we raising the money that we need to raise. So what do you do though when something goes wrong, right? You all get those speakers that, you know, they're not working from a script, they didn't prepare, and they just think one more line, one more line, one more line, and one more line is helping your event. Right, like what do you do? I mean, that's just one example. But when something does go wrong, the dinner doesn't come out on time. They just had a small fire in the kitchen. Somebody's talking. All those things that can go wrong in a live event. Does anybody have examples that went wrong and how you overcome them or any tips on this? I'm just going to open it up to the panel. Chris is already laughing.
Well, listen, there's so many I could write a darn book on it, but the reality is if you
Good.
do
You
have a
could write a book.
DJ or if you have a DJ or a band and they're playing some soft music before the dinner comes out, if the dinner takes a little bit longer, the music is playing longer, no problem, right? If you have that person that speaks longer, you can't stop the microphone. If you don't have what Abby or Jasmine said about having your little light up there to say stop talking, you just got to let them go. Got to let them go, and then next year when you do the run of show, that type of the program, they speak after the money has been raised. It's that simple. I've got a couple of those that are happening in October that it took a couple of years to make it happen, but they already switched it, right? The person was speaking in the middle, and now they speak after the money because what they have to say, it's important that they speak, but what they have to say isn't as important as raising the money. So yeah, crazy.
Who has another example of something that went wrong or a tip that, you can do to overcome? Because live is live, right? You have to
I'm
write
very
it down.
happy to say one. So in one of the events that I was running, we had people who donated ahead of time, and it was going to be put within the live auction. So we had somebody who was in charge of raising for the largest amount in the room while we were doing it, and it was going to set it off. That person, though they had been briefed multiple times, um, had some drinks and forgot that that was their job. And so
Oh,
for a second, that it was a very pregnant second, it was dead silent. There was nothing going on, and it felt very tension. The good thing that we did, though, is that we had people that were already authorized to be making decisions, and it was in the run of show in the notes. So that it's like, okay, when this stuff happens, this is what we're doing. When this stuff happens, the auctioneer does this. So it was kind of easy to kind of go through that, but that was the worst moment of my life.
Yeah.
yeah.
It
That's
feels
why we prepare
so,
ahead of time.
it feels
You
so
know,
heavy. It feels so heavy.
oh,
Well, I'll share one real quick. I do run a small nonprofit with my daughter. It was a fundraising fashion show, and we had a bunch of little kids coming to do an opening number and to dance. And we practiced and rehearsed and practiced. And we had these like 9 years old, just perfect, right? Except when we got to the event day, the DJ played the YouTube version of the song, and we were practicing to and so the kids just like froze. But you know what? Yeah, like you have to laugh. I think you need comedy. And then, my daughter and her partner, they just started pulling people up in the audience and dancing with them and having like a flash mob. And, I'm in the back sweating that heavy moment, like, this is a disaster. But it wasn't. It wasn't. It didn't stop the giving. We made the best of it. So just have to be a little quick on your feet. It's a very heavy moment. But hopefully some of these stories are helping our audience a little bit. Just you got it. It's all good. Let's talk about, we have some questions. I want to read them here. Different times of the auction. Okay, well, I got to read this one. And it is directed to Chris. Do you do different times of auction item during the run of show? I've done this more and more over the years. That's from Aristotle. And it's directed to you, Chris.
Yeah, I think I know it. There are some auctioneers that will do a couple of live auction items and then do the fund and need, the paddle raise, the call to the heart, and then they'll go ahead and do some more live auction. I don't do that. I'm not saying that it's right or that it's wrong. I prefer to build my momentum with my live auction. Then I transition to, again, this is really why we're here, and then we go ahead and get as many hands as possible and capitalize that way. I saw Aristotle's question. Thanks for asking it. I think obviously there's way more than one way to skin a cat. I have success my way. If you have success the way you're doing it, keep on going, my man. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Siri, I think this is a great question for you. When do you close the silent and the raffle and those things, especially when you have mobile bidding, right?
Yeah.
That's another, I feel, heavily debated topic.
I think it's important to see when you look at your how much you raise from your silent and your live and your paddle raise. silent oftentimes is your teaser, and people often think that if you keep it open longer, you're going to raise more money. And also people who, if you keep it open after the live and the paddle race, for those that didn't win in the live, they're going to go and bid on the silent. And that's actually a mistake. The silent, again, is just something to get people in tune with as they're arriving, as their cocktail hour. So I always suggest closing it before you go into the program. And then the other thing you could do with online auction, which I love, that flexibility, is now I've seen people actually close it before their event or close it after their event and not during their event. And that allows for people to be engaged at the event. And so I've often heard people say, I don't want to be on my phone at the event. I want to be present. And that's a way to help people be connected, is to either allow them to bid before the event starts or after the event is over. Also, it helps because then you don't have to bring all the items to the event as well and worry about that. And then distribution afterwards allow for your board members to be connected to your winners, and they can deliver those personally and thank them, as they said too. So it's another way to keep people connected.
Yeah, we heard that in a webinar a few webinars ago about
Yeah.
fulfillment through your board members. I really, really love that. If I was doing a fundraising event tomorrow, I would absolutely deploy that. So Amy asked another question, Siri, if you don't mind sticking with it. What about closing the silent auction? I think you referenced it already, but just elaborate after the event, especially if it's on a Sunday night. And if so, what time do you recommend? Amy, I hope this is helpful, but Siri's the right one to answer.
Well, Sundays are, you got to think about, again, the time. You're not going to be able to keep your event, 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night on a Sunday. So as far as closing your silent after the program, it depends on when your program ends itself. So if your program ends at 8, I would probably keep it open no longer than a half hour afterwards, because again, you're going to lose people. Majority of the people are going to leave and you're not going to see where they're bidding. If you're doing it on paper bid sheets, what I always recommend people is when they go into the program is to put a little hash mark next to the last bid and see how many bids you get after the live auction or the program ends, to see how many people bid continuously. And then you're going to see if it really is worth keeping it open later.
Okay. We have so many questions. Let's keep going with, the audience to guide this conversation. How many live auction items?
Okay, so can I?
Hand up, I got it.
Yeah, well, just since I'm the one that's doing the auction items, listen, I was just about to answer this in the actual Q&A, but look, it really depends on the size of the guests, how many people are in the room, right? Say you've got 300, then my magic number is 6 to 7, right? I'm not even really getting started at 3 or 4, right? And 9, 10, 11, generally speaking, when you're there, that's going to be the private school, things of that nature, where it's okay to run long because it's for school anyway, right? So 6 or 7 is a really nice number. And for me, I mean, I can turn that into, say, 20 minutes, and that 20 minutes will feel like 10, where I know sometimes 20 minutes could feel like 45, and that's what you don't want, right? So it depends on your auctioneer. If you have a dynamic auctioneer, they can really do a nice job. And look, the more that you have, especially if it's been donated, is some more money in your live auction, more revenue for you.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of a formula based on the audience. So I
Yeah.
like that.
Can I add to that as well?
Yeah, please, of course.
So again, going back to your run and show, if you're designing it out, you have to see about your time frame. It takes about 2 to 3 minutes to auction off a live auction lot. And so you want to make sure that you're just not adding auction items just to keep it program longer. So again, going back to what Chris says, that magic number depends on how many people you have in your room and how much attention you're going to be able to keep them. And so this is where a professional auctioneer, and I'm not just pitching Chris is on here, but this is where they're worth their weight in gold. And so I always tell people, having a professional auctioneer, and not just an auctioneer, like a commercial auctioneer, a benefit auctioneer, will know how to keep the flow going, to keep your guests engaged all the way through, and be able to cut it off and not keep asking for bids when it dies down. So for instance, they're not begging for dollars, so to speak. So again, that professional auctioneer is going to allow for people to bid and then cut it off right when they need to and keep the energy going.
Yeah. Yeah, one of my initial conversations with Chris was about that topic right there. You have to know when to stop, when to start, and when to keep that momentum going. So I appreciate you saying that, Siri. we still have some questions about what comes first, the chicken or the egg, and I'd like you all to answer this. We do have a question from Elizabeth, but let's expand on the answer. Do you do the live auction first, then the fund a need? Do the fund a need first, then the live auction? Do you separate them and do the live auction first, then come back later and do the fund a need? Do they go together? Like, somebody break this all down for us, please.
I'll go first, and then everybody else can go after if you guys don't mind. So again, as I've said several times, Elizabeth, for me and the way that I run my program, and it's almost to a when I get involved with an organization, my fingerprints are all over the run of show. All right, that's why they've hired me. And so when we get to the live auction, we're going to go ahead and knock it out of the park, create a bunch of momentum in the live auction, a bunch of excitement. Then I bring in the this is why we're here moment, whether that is a speaker slash video combination, 4, 5, 6 minutes maximum. Pull up the heartstrings, and then we go right in to the paddle raise, and we do that. And that, say, live auction is 25 minutes on the transition, and then 15 minutes there. That's 40 minutes. All the rest of the night is for eating, drinking, and partying time. All right. That's the most important 40 minutes, 45 minutes of your whole evening. That is why you're there. It takes a whole year sometimes to put one of these things on. You got to hit a home run while you got everybody there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like everybody to weigh in. Who else has thoughts here?
So for me, I think the big reason that I am very pro live auction first, followed by the fund to need, is because there are people who are coming in who just want to give money, and there are people who are coming in who kind of have an expectation. They've seen exactly what the live auction items are, and they're like, oh, I want to go to Hawaii. So they bid on that item. Let's say they don't win that trip to Hawaii. They still expected to spend $10,000. They're more likely to give that $10,000 at that fund to need level because they know they didn't win the live auction already. It's already passed, but they're wanting to give to the organization anyway. So I feel like trying to structure it to where people are getting physical items first and those kind of fun giveaway items, spending their money there, and then really feeling the mission, feeling tied to that mission, and then going into that fund of need, kind of in a different headspace, kind of thinking more, I'm not getting an item, I'm contributing to this organization in a little bit of a different way, is something that I think makes the fundraising section of your event really powerful.
Thank you. So, Siri, do we have a Hawaii trip? Abby just mentioned Hawaii. I want to make sure, do we have a Hawaii trip in
We
Hawaii?
do. We have several. We actually have three of them. So
Oh,
Okay,
I'm
good.
manifesting a trip to Hawaii, Siri.
yay.
We're all
We're all
going to
going to
Hawaii.
Hawaii.
Let's
Yep,
go.
I'm in. Let's go.
I was gonna add there too, going back to the program, I like to work backwards too. My thought behind the run a show is that your fundraising should end by 9 o'clock. I call it the witching hour. And so you work backwards. And so depending on how many lots you want to have and where you're going to, put the paddle raise in, you may have to put it in the middle. I don't like to lead off with the paddle raise. Again, to the same thoughts that Abby was saying, that again, if you're holding on to that money because you want to win something in the live auction, then you're not going to give. But again, I'm in the Northwest. We're notorious from back in the day of 40 to 50 lots in a live auction, believe it or not. And if you waited till the very end to do your paddle raise, you have lost over half your audience. So again, you have to know that you have to see where people are willing to stay and get the money as maximum as you can. So again, I like to work backwards. And so if 9 o'clock's my cutoff, then go backwards that way to see how your run of show is going to take place.
Jasmine, from your experience, what would you say on this whole, what comes first? When does it
So,
happen?
yeah, I agree. I think that, I mean, everyone's kind of said it. I prefer to do it after because everyone's already envisioned spending money, and if they didn't, then they're gonna. It may not be as much as they thought, but they're gonna, because they already thought they were going to Hawaii with the rest of us, and that didn't happen. So at least they can feel good about themselves donating. So I think that that's kind of how it goes. I also would note, if you go over in terms of lots, it can drag. So there's always if you're doing also a silent auction, which I tend to do, that means that everyone can kind of get in on it. You can have super silent items. They don't necessarily take away, but it's like, all right, well, it's not a featured thing. If it's another like high ticket item, but you just can't have that many lots. So there's always options.
Yeah. We are getting a lot of requests for run of show templates. So Chris, I don't know if you have one. If you're considering Chris for your event, I'm sure he will consult with you. Abby, I don't know if Utopia Experience has one. But you can if anybody has a template, drop it in the chat and let our audience know. And then to our audience, you can in your post-webinar survey, just indicate who you want to connect with, and we'll definitely put you in touch. We'll try to find some resources on that as well for you. Lots of requests for that. Um, okay. Let's look a little bit forward. If you could just change one thing about event fundraising tomorrow, what would you all want our audience to know that they should be changing this? Fill in the blank. Let's start with you, Jasmine.
So I kind of have covered this, but I'd ask nonprofits and the people planning to really value the attendees' time intentionally. So when, like I said, when we're close to the mission, it is very hard to separate what they really need from what feels important and sentimental to us internally. Um, it may be really something that means a great deal to staff, board, or longtime supporters, but it doesn't automatically mean it needs several minutes for the formal program. So I think respecting time might mean shortening something that we really love, or like we really have something like really like connected to us, but we can recognize someone in a different way while ending the program when the room still has energy. And that's something we need to understand. We're not weakening our mission, we're just helping it come through more clearly.
I love that. Okay, Abby, for you, if you could tell one thing to our audience that they should shift their mindset and change this tomorrow, what would that be?
I think mine would be to kind of change your mindset on what the guest experience looks like. I hear this a lot from my boss at work. We're in event planning, and he likes to say that no one goes home and talks about the chicken at an event. They talk about the experience, they talk about the feelings that they felt. So I think going into it of kind of this view of you don't have to have a fancy dinner, you don't have to have the nicest tablecloths, you don't have to have extravagant lights hanging from the wall. I think if you focus it on how do my guests feel? You know, for example, we did an event um, for like a low hunger group, people needing food, and we had a slice of bread on a plate as guests entered to show them like this is what without your donation our guests are eating. You know, tying them to that mission, finding ways to make guests experience what the mission is and what the focal point is of the event.
And who is Utopia Experience boss? Is that the one and only Joey Goon?
That is Mr. Joey Goon. You will see him in the chat if anyone wants any fun tidbits. He is always giving good advice.
Mr. Joey Goon, hello. We're glad to have you with us today. Hope your beautiful wife and family are doing well. Siri, what do you want to tell our audience? Change your mindset. Do this. What's that one thing?
I think the biggest thing is exactly kind of what Abby and Jasmine are saying is to make sure everybody leaves feeling excited for next year and have already marked it on their calendar. Again, we have to be respectful for their time, and there are a lot of charities out there that are asking for their money. So you want to make sure that they leave your event ready and willing to be there again next year. And so I think that's engaging as well as prospecting new donors, right? So you've got sponsors. I hear it all the time at check-in that when we ask them, do you want to leave your credit card for any of the auction items? Oh, I don't plan to bid on anything. And you're like, then why are you here? You want to ask them. And so it's engaging them. And then at the end of the night, you hear them like, oh my gosh, I just had the best night of my life. They come back, they put their credit card down because they either bid on an auction item, bought a raffle ticket, or they gave a donation. So again, it's that incorporating that experience for your donors.
All right, Chris, I'm going to ask you that same question. I know the first time we spoke, we went on for an hour, right? And I wish we can get all of Chris Marsh on, but what's the one thing? What's the one thing you want people to think differently?
Well, here's what I would say, friends, is that it's quality and not quantity. Um, for years, it was trying to fill a ballroom with and put butts in seats, and it's not correct. It's put the correct butts in seats, putting people in the room that align with your mission, that believe in who you are and what you're trying to accomplish. Most importantly, they have to have the means to give you the money. Right? I don't care. Put a professional, put a non-professional. If there's no money in the room, we're not getting the money out of the room, friends. Okay, so stop giving away 10 seats because someone gave you money for a table when the people that bought the table invite four couples who have no ability to give you any money. That doesn't help you. It costs a lot of money to feed and drink our friends now, the rentals, the so on, right? So you've lost money by putting 10 people at that table for $2,500. You've lost money in some places, So quality people versus quantity. If that changes, your fundraising, your numbers will begin to go up immediately. I guarantee it.
Quality all the way. So the run of show, let's add that to the list, right? Concise.
Yeah.
We're going to add one more. Make sure every step of the way is quality. We did have a question about emerging nonprofits. I'd love to take that. I run a very small nonprofit with my daughter, and I would consider us emerging. And yeah, I applied these same principles. I didn't apply them all together. I tried something and then surveyed after the event and asked my supporters, right? Would you like that trip to Hawaii next year? And see what they say. And then I kept adding, but I do think to answer that question that these definitely apply. All right, what about gamification in your run of show? You know, the heads or tails and the pin the tail on the donkey and all of those things. I don't know what to call them. Are they just a distraction? Are they revenue? Jasmine, I think you're ready to answer. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think gamification is really fun as long as it fits in the thing and it's scheduled and we have like somebody that's like very much like on the scheduled time. If we're talking about trivia, gamification is great because sometimes people are really not as participatory or they're just there to be there. When you have heads and tails, they have to stand. So they're already like having to put more of their body into it. So it's an energy driver between rounds, which is very nice, as long as it doesn't take up significant time. And then we were supposed to leave at 8, and now it's 10, and we're still on round 10.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. Are they all the same thing? It's like heads or tails, last hero standing. Like, are they all the same thing or are they all different things?
well, they're all different.
Oh, okay.
Some are more complicated than others. I think heads and tails is a really good one because it's not hard.
Okay. Yeah, I could stand up and sit down.
Yeah.
I've mastered that. Abby, what about you? How do you feel? How does Utopia integrate gamification?
I'm a big fan of gamification, especially at the end of like a paddle raise, at the end of a live auction, because a lot of times at that point, we're nearing the end of the event. Guests' energy are kind of dipping a little bit. They've given a lot of their money. So why not get them out of their seats, get them excited, do something a little different? Sometimes people come to these auctions and they've never seen something like this. Sometimes they come to these auctions and they're just snoozing a little bit at the end of the event. And this is something to kind of get them excited again. So I think utilizing it, but like Jasmine said, in a way that is time efficient. You don't want to spend 45 minutes on heads or tails. I think giving yourself 5 minutes of time to do a quick game, get people engaged, and then send them off for drinks in the after party is the way to go.
Got it. Okay, good to know. Oh gosh, I wish we had another hour because I know we can keep going. I'm gonna have to bring you all back. We're gonna have to talk about how we get everybody else on board, right? Because that's a big one. But I do want to give a big thank you to our incredible panelists. I so appreciate your time, all this expertise. I didn't even feel like we were in a webinar. It just felt like we were sharing, real world experience, around the coffee table. So, to our audience, thank you for being such a great interactive audience. If we didn't answer your question, you can drop them in the survey. I do want to give you all a quick invitation on August 5th. We do have another webinar coming up. I know it's about data. Data is so not as sexy as run of show, but it's so important, right? And before the fall event fundraising season, you're going to want to know what you need to track so that you can improve your event. And before we say goodbye, I do want to share, we have a lot going on. In addition to all the Hawaii packages that Siri referenced, we have a lot of exciting things happening at Auction Packages. If you're in the Chicago area, join us for Behind the Bid Chicago on September 17th. Registration will be coming your way very soon. Look out for the whole package, our brand new podcast being hosted by myself and Kevin Spikerman. You all know and love him. So we can't wait to share that with you. And later this month, we have a brand new, all new Auction Packages website with personalized functionality built just for you, everyone in the audience. We actually created a nonprofit experience so that you can just manage your events a lot easier. It's very intuitive. We hope you love it. Let me know if you do. I'll be excited to hear. One last thing, we have new packages every month, and I wanted to share these because my colleague Danielle and I, we want to go on Tennessee Treetop. Who doesn't want to spend the night in a treetop in Tennessee? I want to, but also this great trip with South Africa. So I just wanted you guys to know all about that. 3 new packages you can see them now and reserve them now. Siri and her team will be happy to help you there. So as we close, I just want to extend a sincere thank you to our panelists again for your generosity. Time is money, and I so appreciate you being here. And to everyone joining us, thank you for investing an hour with us. More importantly, thank you for what you do every day to build better communities for us. We so appreciate it. A survey is coming your way. We'd so appreciate you filling that out so we know where we can guide our content in the future. And you can let us know how we did today and if you want to connect with any of our panelists. But for now, that's all the time we have. Thank you so much again. Have a wonderful day and let us know if we could help with anything.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.